What's up everyone, we're going to be going through the best NBA player props on Prizepicks today. Now I did want to show you the results from yesterday's picks from my exclusive Discord group, and as you guys see, we actually got 22 picks correct, which was absolutely insane. Now a lot of you comment wanting to see how many I got wrong, and I thought I'd show you in today's video. We only got 2 picks wrong and got 22 right, which is a 92% win rate. Yes guys, you heard that right, 92% win rate. So we're on a huge hot streak, but if you want to get a 92% win rate and get 22 picks right like me, win more bets, or receive the best picks from some of the best bettors in the world for less than a cup of coffee, you can access the exclusive Discord and meet some of the best sport bettors in the game by joining my Patreon. Should be a link down below in the description. Once you join, you'll have complete access to the Discord and can start winning more bets today. So make sure to join my Patreon using the link in the description. And here's one of our members who just signed up and won himself $12,500 just yesterday. Another member who won $100 for the 7th day in a row since joining my Discord. So guys, if you want to win big money like our members, the link will be in the description, so go join the Patreon to have access to the Discord group. And I will be continuing to upload every single day on this channel the best bets and props, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my daily uploads. Also want to give a quick shout out to Alexander Kabahida, who said, bro, take a breather, too much yapping, good picks though, you've come through me for a couple of times. So it seems I give good picks, but I do yap a lot, but I'm sorry, we got another video full of yapping. But also shouts out to Dre Gooda 6395, who said, good vid, but let's limit the yapping. So I'm sorry guys, there is going to be a lot of yapping in this video because I want to get the best picks out for you possible. But shouts out to them, and if you do want to win a shout out in the next video, all you have to do is comment down below and like this video, and you can be in the running to win a shout out in the next one. All right, so let's get straight into the first pick. And when it comes to these picks, I'm not saying to chuck all of them into a parlay and hope for the best. Pick and choose the ones that you like and the ones that work best for you. So the first pick we're talking about is Tim Hardaway Jr. for 11.5 points, and this one actually is for less. Now look at Tim Hardaway Jr. We've actually seen him go on the under in 1 out of the last 5 games. Now, when we look at the last 5 games, we see on March 31st, they faced off against Minnesota Timberwolves, where he had 20 points there. Then 23 points against Oklahoma City Thunder on April 3rd. Then April 5th, faced off against Toronto, where he had 23 points there. Then 9 points against Memphis Grizzlies on April 6th. And then April 8th, Sacramento Kings had 19 points there. So when it comes to actually, Tim Hardaway Jr., he has only gone on the under in 1 out of the last 5, and they do face off against none other than New York Knicks in this next matchup. Now, as you all know, when you also look at, their matchup as well, we also do see that when we look at both of these teams, the New York Knicks have done, a pretty good job this season because they have actually clinched themselves a playoff spot and are currently in the 3rd spot in the Eastern Conference. So they have done a fantastic job there. Now, when we look at someone like Tim Hardaway Jr. as well, they do, or his team, the Detroit Pistons, we do see Detroit Pistons ranking 6th in the Eastern Conference as well. Now they have already clinched a playoff spot, so they can't go any lower than the actual 6th place, but there is still a possibility they could end up actually in the 5th spot as well. So it is going to be interesting to see how they actually pan out the game, if they are going to try to push for that 5th spot or rest their stars and pretty much set themselves up for that 6th spot and their matchup there. But either way, looking at the New York Knicks, we do see that the New York Knicks, when it comes to points allowed, they do rank 9th, and that's still a big reason why we do very much like the under for this one. Now, although New York Knicks are missing a couple of players during this matchup, one of those players being Josh Hart, Brunson may also be out for this game, we also still do like the under due to the fact that a big reason for this is that New York Knicks tend to play slow-paced type basketball, and they do a great job at actually slowing down faster-paced teams. Now, Detroit are a pretty fast-paced team, and we are expecting them to slow them down quite a lot, which should definitely have a huge effect on Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, although Tim Hardaway has done a great job in points as of recent, like we always mention, matchups, that's what's most important, and with a matchup like this, we definitely see someone like Tim Hardaway Jr. going on the under in this one. Now, his average over the last 5 is 18.8, so yes, it is, higher than his line, but like I mentioned before, I do believe, he has had a little bit more of easier matchups in a sense that they do allow more points. He has been able to take advantage of that, but now coming into this next one, it should be a little bit of a different story there. Now, looking at Tim Hardaway Jr. against the Knicks so far this season, he's had some pretty interesting games. Now, they faced off against each other actually in November 1st, and he only had 8 points in that matchup, so he went under on his line there. Then faced off again on the 7th of December, we had 11 points, so still under his line, and then 10 points on the 13th of January, and that's still on the under in that situation there. So he's actually going on the under in 3 of those 3 games he faced off against New York Knicks, and that's a big reason why we do very much like the under once again. We definitely see the outcome being pretty much the exact same. We don't really see it being any different, and we definitely see someone like Tim Hardaway Jr. struggling against this New York Knicks team that just do a great job at restricting points. So for that reason, we are sticking to the under for someone like Tim Hardaway Jr. So Tim Hardaway Jr. 11.5 points for less, I think, is a fantastic pick. Now, getting into the next one, we're going to be talking about Onyeka Okongwu. Now, as you all know, Onyeka, great player for the Atlanta Hawks. And this one is a great one for 11.5 rebounds. And this one actually is for less. Now, look at Onyeka Okongwu. We've actually seen him go on the under in 2 out of the last 5 games. Now, looking at those games, we see that they faced off against Portland. And in that Portland game, he had 6 rebounds there. Then they faced off against Dallas Mavericks and on the April 3rd and had 14 rebounds. Then 5 rebounds against New York Knicks on April 6th. After that, faced off against Utah Jazz on April 7th and had 12 rebounds, and then 14 rebounds against Orlando Magic on April 9th. But when we look at someone like Okongwu, we definitely still, like this matchup as they do face off against the Brooklyn Nets. Now, looking at the Brooklyn Nets, as we all know, Brooklyn Nets are in a little bit of a different position. They are currently ranked 12th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 26-53. Now, they have already, pretty much solidified that they aren't going to make the playoffs. There is no opportunity for them to make the playoffs. It is pretty much over, and they're most likely coming into this game pretty much, just giving up at this point. So, we are still expecting them to play their main players, but they can't really tank anymore. The team below them is too far away for them to actually go down one position. So we are expecting the Nets to just come out and play their basketball. Atlanta Hawks, however, are in a little bit of a different situation. They do want to stay in that 8th spot because they don't want to fall in the 9th and 10th spot in the play-ins, because that means, they lose the advantage that you do get when you're in the 7th and 8th, because if you do lose, you still have a second shot at making, the playoffs. So that's a big reason why this game is very important to them. Hawks have a record of 37-42. Bulls are right behind with a record of 37-43. So right behind them there. And then Heat also have a record of 36-44. So also just right behind them as well. So it is definitely going to be an exciting game. They have already solidified their spot in the play-ins for sure, but now it is going to come down to ranking. So we are still expecting both of these teams to play hard. However, when we look at the Brooklyn Nets, we do see that the Brooklyn Nets do actually rank 11th when it comes to rebounds allowed. And for that reason, we do very much like the under for this situation here. Brooklyn Nets, surprisingly, even though they aren't the greatest team, do a fantastic job at restricting rebounds. And they also do a fantastic job at restricting rebounds to the big man position. This could be due to the fact that Nets do have some great, big men in that team, especially Claxton being one of them. Now, there are also other bigs in that Nets team that have been getting a lot more minutes out there, and they have definitely been contributing to it. But we think overall, we definitely see someone like Okongwu going on the under in this situation here, due to the fact that Brooklyn Nets just do a fantastic job there at restricting rebounds, and especially do a great job at restricting rebounds to the actual big man position. Now, when we look at someone like Okongwu as well, what we also do see is that when it comes to the Atlanta Hawks Brooklyn Nets matchup, Brooklyn Nets are a slower paced team than Atlanta, but what we have seen time and time again is that Brooklyn do a fantastic job at slowing down faster paced teams. So we definitely see that being the case coming into this game here. We see someone like Okongwu going on the under due to those reasons, just off sheer volume alone, and we definitely see that affecting him greatly. Now, when we look at Onyeka over the last couple of games against Brooklyn Nets in the past, we do see that they faced off against each other on the 23rd of last year. Now, during that matchup, we actually did see him get 8 rebounds in that matchup. So he did have 8 rebounds in that matchup, so he would have went under on his line there. So that's pretty big news to us there. And then they faced off against each other on the 16th as well, but he had 15 rebounds in that matchup, so he did go on the over in that one. So, he did go on the over in one, went on the under in the other. However, we still do very much like, the under for this situation here. Obviously, he did get, I wouldn't say lucky is the right word, but he did have a little bit more usage rate in that second game, but we don't really see that happening again in this second matchup, in this third matchup, sorry, as well. So for that reason, we are definitely sticking to the under for Okongwu coming into this game. So Onyeka Okongwu for 11.5 rebounds for less, I think is a fantastic pick. So getting to the next pick, we're going to be talking about none other than Bruce Brown. So, as you all know, Bruce Brown, great player for none other than the New Orleans Pelicans. And this one is for 17.5 points, reps, and assists. And this one is for less. So this one's a great PRA. We've actually seen him go on the under in 3 out of the last 5 games. Now, they face off against Charlotte, where, he did have a 17 PRA on March 31st. Then April 3rd faced off against Clippers, where he had a 22 PRA there. Then an 8 PRA against Los Angeles Lakers on April 5th. And then April 7th faced off against the Bucks, where he had a 29 PRA there. And then Brooklyn Nets on the 13th PRA, a 13 PRA, sorry, on April 9th. So we've actually seen him go in the under in 3 out of the last 5 games. Now, when we look at his average over the last 5, it is 17.8, so just slightly above this line, but not really convincing enough to us as well. Now, when it comes to the Pelicans, they do have themselves an interesting matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, when we look at the Milwaukee Bucks and also the Pelicans, we starting off with the Pelicans, we see that the Pelicans do rank 14th in the Western Conference with a record of 21-58. So their record pretty much has solidified them into that 14th spot. We don't really see it improving anytime soon, especially due to the fact that when it actually comes to the Pelicans, they have pretty much, solidified their spot that they are going to be in 14th. There is no chance for them to make the playoffs, so it is pretty much game over for them there. Now, looking at the Milwaukee Bucks, however, we have a little bit of a different situation. The Milwaukee Bucks do actually rank 5th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 45-34. So, very different record there. Now, obviously, when you also look at, the Milwaukee Bucks, they have a great record, but the Detroit Pistons are slightly just behind them. Now, it still can definitely change due to the fact we could actually see a position where, the Bucks, if they end up losing the next couple of games, Pistons end up winning the next couple of games, we could see them actually switch spots. However, the Bucks have already solidified, their playoff position. So they have no chance of making it into the play-ins. They are definitely in the playoffs, which is still a pretty good position for them. Now, looking at the Milwaukee Bucks defense, we actually do see that when it comes to points, rebounds, and assists allowed, we see that Bucks do rank 13th when it comes to points allowed, 13th when it comes to assists allowed, and then rebounds allowed, they rank a little bit worse as they rank 25th. So we still do very much like, this situation here, the under, due to the fact that when we look at someone like Bruce Brown, he is playing usually that small forward position, but Milwaukee Bucks actually do a fantastic job at restricting points, rebounds, and assists to the small forward position. So we definitely see, Bucks taking advantage of that there, restricting Bruce Brown as much as they can, and we definitely see that affecting it very much. So for that reason, we do very much like the under for this situation for someone like Bruce Brown. Now, coming into this game, we are expecting a decent amount of pace, not really anything too crazy, but just a decent amount for sure. But after that, we definitely still see, Bruce Brown going on the under, even though he is coming off a game where he did have a 29 PRA. So we should definitely see that changing coming into this next one, especially like we always mention, matchups. That's what's most important more than anything else. So for that reason, when we also look at Bruce Brown over the last couple of games against Bucks this season, obviously he did get traded mid-season as well, but on the first game that they had, he was in a Toronto Raptors uniform. He had 3 points there. So when you look at that there, that equals to 6 PRA in total. Then they've played against each other again on the 17th of January, again also with the Toronto Raptors, and in that matchup he had 17 points, 6 rebounds, so he actually had a 23 PRA there. Interesting in that matchup. And then lastly, we also saw him against with the New Orleans Pelicans on the 6th have a 16-4-9 game. So he did play very, very well there. However, we are expecting a different situation here due to the fact that it is pretty much over for the Pelicans. We aren't expecting Pelicans to really play Bruce Brown that much. So for that reason, we definitely still see him going on the under in this situation here. So Bruce Brown for a 17.5 points, rebounds, and assists for less, I think is a fantastic pick. So as you all know, I do want to get these picks out to you as soon as possible, but Prizepicks is delayed with some of their lines. So here are a couple of players you should definitely watch out for when their lines drop. So the first player we're going to be talking about is none other than Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, as you all know, Karl-Anthony Towns, fantastic player for none other than the New York Knicks. And when it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns so far this season, he has done a fantastic job, averaging 24.4 points, 12.8 rebounds, 3.1 assists, while also shooting 52.6% from the field. So he's done a fantastic job for none other than the New York Knicks. And when it comes to the New York Knicks, they do have themselves a very interesting matchup against the Detroit Pistons. Now, looking at Karl-Anthony Towns, he does rank 13th in points, 2nd in rebounds, 83rd in assists, and 19th in field goal percentage. So he has done a fantastic job for this team. Do not get me wrong there. But when we also look at actually Karl-Anthony Towns in the matchup against Detroit Pistons, now looking at both these teams, starting off with the Knicks are currently ranked 3rd in the actual Eastern Conference with a record of 50-29. So they have done a fantastic job. Now, when it comes to the New York Knicks, they have already clinched a playoff position. So that was absolutely huge for them. And we definitely see that, you know, as a really big achievement for this Knicks team. But on top of that, we are definitely expecting, when it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns, to not play as hard as we usually should see. A big reason for this is due to the fact that obviously the New York Knicks have already clinched a playoff spot. Now they can still drop down to the 4th spot, which would actually give them a different matchup in the playoffs. They have already clinched a playoff spot, however, so because of that, we don't really know just yet what strategy they are looking to run. Now we are still expecting Karl-Anthony Towns to play somewhat, but this game doesn't really seem as important, you know, due to the fact that they have already clinched a playoff spot. And Detroit Pistons are in somewhat a similar situation. They currently rank 6th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 43-36. Obviously, they have clinched a 6th spot, and it does seem that they are 2 wins away from the Bucks. Now, they could still end up potentially getting that 5th spot. It really does depend on how the Bucks go. But as of right now, we aren't really expecting too much from these teams, as we have seen also Pistons take it a little bit easy when it comes to the you know, trying to really get these wins. You know, I do see their stars still playing, but the play style and a lot of the usage rates has definitely been very, very different. And that's why I do like to look at the last 10 games, because we are in a different scenario. But looking at the last 10 games for Detroit Pistons, we have seen the Pistons rank 18th when it comes to points allowed. Moving on into assists allowed, we see that they rank 5th, and then rebounds allowed, we do see Detroit do rank low as well, as a rank 25th. Now, this does actually work out in our favor, because when it actually comes to Karl-Anthony Towns, we actually do like the over for someone like Cat, but only for points and rebounds. And a big reason being is that when it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns, he does have a higher usage rate in both of those departments. But on top of that, Detroit, as of lately, have been ranking very, very low at restricting both of those categories. So we definitely see someone, you know, like Cat being able to take advantage of it coming into this game, no doubt about it. Now, when we also look at Karl-Anthony Towns, what we also do see is that when it actually comes to Cat, we have seen him have a really good usage rate as of lately, since Brunson and also, you know, Josh Hart have been out for some time now. So it's definitely been in their favor for sure. Obviously, you know, Karl-Anthony Towns coming into this game, he doesn't need to play as hard, as the win isn't really as necessary. But over the last couple of games, they have already been in this similar position, but we still have seen Cat have a good usage rate out there, especially in the points and rebounds department. And a big reason for that is due to the fact that New York Knicks are resting a couple of other stars, so Karl-Anthony Towns has had a very big boost to his usage rate. Now, looking at his last 5 games, he's had some pretty big games. He's coming off a matchup where he had 34 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 assists. So looking at points and rebounds, since we are focusing on those, he did go over in both of those lines. He had another matchup where he had 19 points, 13 rebounds, which I thought was great. Another matchup having 25 points and 13 rebounds against the Cleveland Cavaliers, so that was also a tough team there. And now they do face off against an easier team like Detroit over the last 10 games. Their defense has definitely been very, very bad. We definitely see Karl-Anthony Towns taking advantage of this and going on the over there. So keep an eye out for Karl-Anthony Towns' line there. Now getting into the next player, we're going to be talking about Indiana Pacers Tyrese Haliburton. So Haliburton, as we all know, great player, averaging 18.6 points, 3.5 rebounds, 9.2 assists, and also shooting 47.3% from the field. So he's done a fantastic job for, the Indiana Pacers. And when it comes to the Pacers, they do have themselves a very good matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So it is going to be an exciting game. Now, obviously, looking at Tyrese, he does rank 45th in points, 146th in rebounds, 3rd in assists, and also 58th, in also field goal percentage. So he has done a fantastic job there. Now, when we look at someone like when we look at their matchup, like we mentioned, the Indiana Pacers do face off against Cleveland Cavaliers. But what we also do see is that when we look at both of these teams, looking at their standings, so obviously starting off with actually none other than Tyrese Haliburton, we know the Pacers have done a fantastic job all season, but the Pacers do rank 4th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 48-31. All right, so looking at this matchup, obviously we all do know that, the Indiana Pacers do or have been ranking very, very well. They have done a great job so far this season. Now, they do rank 4th actually in the Eastern Conference, which I think is great. Not only that, but they also do have a record of 48-31. So they have a fantastic record there, and we definitely see that being a big, big plus here, because when we actually look at this, they do face off against none other than the Cavaliers, who do also rank 1st with a record of 63-16. Now, when we look at the Cavaliers, they have actually solidified their spot in the number 1 position. So they have already taken that. So pretty much the rest of the season for the Cavaliers doesn't really matter too much. They're not really too focused if they win or lose. They're already in the playoffs, and they are also already have that number 1 spot. So won't really be too much, decision making there for the Cavs. Now, Pacers, on the other hand, they could win potentially the next couple of games and could actually see them potentially above the New York Knicks. Now, obviously, it definitely does depend on where New York Knicks end up doing over the next couple of games as well. So there's obviously that. We do still see Pacers coming out in this game and trying to play the best game possible. But looking at Cavaliers over the last 10 games, however, when we look at the Cavs, we have obviously seen the Cavs drop drastically. They rank 15th in points allowed, 15th in assists allowed, and then also rebounds allowed. They rank 21st. Now, you may be all kind of wondering, why did they rank so low in all 3 categories? And a big reason for that, guys, is due to the fact that Cleveland Cavaliers have already solidified their number 1 spot for some time now, and they've also secured their playoff spot pretty early. So they have pretty much been resting their stars as much as they can, and their usage rate and also their defensive usage rate specifically has definitely fallen because of that. So Cleveland have already solidified it, so we definitely aren't expecting that much defense in this game, or especially, when we look at Cleveland, we aren't expecting their stars to play that much minutes or that much usage rate, and for that reason, we do very much like the over for someone like Tyrese Haliburton coming into this game. Now, Tyrese does have a great usage rate as well in all 3 departments. Now, I definitely would focus on points and assists due to the fact that he does have a higher usage rate in both of those departments, but either way, we definitely still see someone, like Tyrese Haliburton being able to go on the over in a situation like this. So he has done a fantastic job there. Now, obviously, when you also look at Tyrese over the last couple of games, he has been, been playing great, and also the Pacers in general have also been on quite a roll. They have won their last 5 games, and he's most recently coming off a game where he had 22 points, 6 assists, 1 rebound. Had another matchup where he had 17 points, 11 assists, 6 rebounds there, and another matchup where he had 22 points, 10 assists, and also 1 rebound there. So he's been able to put on quite a show. Even though he doesn't go over on every single time on his line, he does get very, very close, and he has faced off against teams lately that have been a little bit more tougher. So I think in this one, it's definitely going to be in his favor, and we should see him go on the over here. So keep an eye out for Tyrese Haliburton's line. I see a lot of value there to go on the over. Now, getting into the next player, we're going to be talking about Trendon Watford. So, as we all know, Watford, a great player from the Brooklyn Nets, and he's been doing a fantastic job, averaging 9.9 points, 3.4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 46.7% from the field. So he's done a fantastic job, and if you don't know already, the Brooklyn Nets, have been playing Trendon Watford for, a little bit more due to the fact that a lot of the Brooklyn Nets stars have been resting or are out for the rest of the season. So Watford has seen a little bit of an increase in his usage rate, compared to, when he started this season for this Nets team. Now, they do face off actually against the Atlanta Hawks in this matchup. It is going to be an exciting game, but when we look at both of these teams, starting off with the Brooklyn Nets are pretty much out of the playoffs. There is no, chance for them to actually make it back into it. So we are expecting this game. Brooklyn Nets are just going to play their game. They don't really need to lose anymore or need to tank anymore due to the fact that when it comes to the 12th position, they pretty much have solidified that spot already. So, it doesn't really need to be a certain way. We just still expect Trendon Watford and the Brooklyn Nets to, have some fun out there, play their game. So, we don't really see too much there when it comes motive-wise. However, Atlanta Hawks on the other side are in a little bit of a different situation. The Atlanta Hawks currently rank 8th in the Eastern Conference, and obviously they are currently in the play-ins. However, when it comes to their position in the play-ins, it hasn't actually been solidified just yet. And what I mean by that is that when it comes to Atlanta Hawks, they currently rank 8th, so they are in the top half of the play-in. So they do have an advantage where if they lose that game, they still have a second chance of making it, to the actual playoffs. However, if you fall into the 9th and 10th position, you are in a little bit of a different situation there. If you fall into those two positions, if you end up losing, you're out, and you're not making the playoffs. So they do definitely want to get into that 7th or 8th position. So this game is still very important. They are only one win away from the actual 10th seed, which is actually the Miami Heat, who have 36 wins while Hawks have 37, and then Bulls have the same wins at 37, but Bulls have one extra loss with 43 losses. So they do have a slightly lower record there. So, the Hawks can't really afford to lose these games, especially the last couple. They do want to win it as much as they can, and coming into this, we are expecting them to play hard. Now, however, when we look at Atlanta Hawks, however, we do see that the Hawks do rank when it comes to points allowed. They rank 28th. Assists allowed, we also do see that the Hawks rank 8th, and then rebounds allowed, they do rank 7th. So, they rank pretty high in rebounds and assists. However, for this pick, we do like the over for someone like Trendon Watford, but specifically just for points only. Now, Trendon Watford doesn't really have that high of a usage rate in the rebounds and assist department. It isn't really too big. So we definitely see that, being a bit of a thing there due to the fact that we aren't really expecting a line to come out for the rebounds and assists. We are strictly focusing on points, and I do believe that Trendon Watford, especially how he has been playing over the last couple of games, we should see him be able to go on the over. And talking about the last couple of games, he's recently coming off a game against New Orleans Pelicans where they did win, and he had 22 points in that matchup, so over his line or over his average in that sense. Then face off against Toronto, also had 13 points, so over there. And then Minnesota was also over on his averages and had 11 points there. Now against Dallas and Washington, he did go in the under. However, guys, we definitely have seen his usage rate change as it's pretty much solidified where the Brooklyn Nets are. So we are expecting Watford to pretty much finish out the season strong coming into this game. So for that reason, we do very much like the over, but strictly definitely focus a little bit more on points, see where the line is at. And like I always mentioned, if the line is under his averages, then definitely look to go on the over there. Now, getting into the next player, we're going to be talking about Desmond Bane. So as you all know, Desmond Bane, great player from the Memphis Grizzlies, and he's done a fantastic job so far this season, averaging 19 points, ranking 39th, 6.1 rebounds, ranking 50th, 5.4 assists, ranking 33rd, and then 48.2% field goal percentage, ranking 43rd. So he has done a great job for none other than the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Memphis Grizzlies do have themselves an interesting matchup against none other than the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, it is going to be a very exciting game between both of these teams because when we look at both of these teams, they're in somewhat similar positions, and it is a little bit of a make or break situation for them. Now, when we look at actually the Memphis Grizzlies. Starting off with them, we see that the Grizzlies currently have a record of 47-32, and they currently rank 6th in the Western Conference. So they have done very, very well. Now, they are currently in the playoffs, yes, but the race in the Western Conference is so tight that anything can really happen until the end. The reason being is that the Clippers and also the Nuggets are ahead of them, but only one win ahead of them. So if Grizzlies win this game, that is a huge, huge plus there. But on top of that, they definitely need to win this, because if they do lose, they have the Warriors, who have a record of 47-33, and also the Timberwolves are just behind, with only one behind, with a record of 46-33. So they are only one win behind, so that is why the Timberwolves are wanting to win this game as well. It is going to be a very, very close race to the end, and they haven't actually solidified a play-in or playoff position, as one win, 2 wins here, or 1 loss, 2 losses here can definitely change the outcome of these teams from the 4th to the 8th place. So the Western Conference, as we all know, is a very, very tight race, and we definitely see it coming down to pretty much the last game where these teams end up. But I definitely see that being a big, big thing, so you definitely would want to keep an eye out for that. But like I mentioned, they face off against the Timberwolves. Now, looking at the Timberwolves, they do rank 11th in points allowed. They also rank 19th in assists allowed and 6th in rebounds allowed. So for this one, we do very much like the under for this situation for someone like Desmond Bane, but I would focus on points and rebounds. And a big reason being is that due to the fact that when it comes to Desmond Bane, he does have, a little bit of a usage rate in the points and rebounds department, and we are expecting this actual Timberwolves team to restrict them as much as they can. Now, when we look at the Timberwolves, they are a pretty slow-paced team, and that is a big factor for it. We are expecting Timberwolves to really slow down the pace of this Grizzlies team enough to stop him, and also slowing him down will also cause less usage rate and less volume, sheer volume for Desmond Bane in general. So that's a big reason why we do very much like the under for this situation here for someone like Desmond Bane. Like I mentioned, definitely focus on points and rebounds in this situation, as we definitely see someone like Desmond Bane going on the under in this one. Now, when we also look at actually, Desmond Bane in general, what we have seen time and time again is that when it comes to his position, shooting guard, Timberwolves have just done a fantastic job against shooting guards, and we definitely see that being the case here as well. Now, looking at his last 5 games, he has had some pretty big games, but, it is still pretty interesting because he's coming off a game against Charlotte where he had 19 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Yes, those are some pretty good numbers, but he did still go in the under in all 3 of those lines, so I think that's interesting there. Now, on top of that, when you also look at actually some other games, you saw he had 17 points, 6 assists, 9 rebounds, so pretty decent in the rebounds and assists, but not really too well in points. He had a 19-point game, 5 assists, and also 4 rebound game against Warriors. He also had a 38-point game, 3 assists, 7 rebounds, but that was against Detroit, and Detroit's defense has definitely fallen quite a bit. But now that they face off against Timberwolves, we are expecting the under for this situation here.